Hey everyone, welcome to the first issue of Beyond the Pod, Crawley Town Football Club. I'm your host and Vice Chairman, Ben Levin. The point of this podcast, videocast, is to interview folks from around the club and to not talk about what's going on out on the pitch, but what's actually happening in their lives and in their careers off the pitch. Today, our very first guest is the one and only Ben Gladwin. Ben, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
So most of you out there will know Ben, familiar with him as captain last year on our promotion-winning squad. But could you give a brief overview of your career, where you came from, and how you got to here?
Yeah, not overly exciting, but I got released as a young boy from Reading at about 12 years old, persisted through non-league football, started playing non-league at 16 years old, and then at 21 arrived at Swindon, done relatively well at Swindon and got bought by QPR. Had a bit of a tough spell there, moved on to Blackburn where my knee decided to fail me quite a lot, which I think the fans will probably know about as well. But had some time at Blackburn injured, unfortunately, but was a brilliant club and a brilliant experience still. On to MK Dons, had a great time there, learnt so much and sort of found my rhythm again and my love for football definitely. Returned to Swindon, obviously where I started professionally. That's where I met the manager. And then when he moved, I came here and I've had a great time since.
So can you talk about last season and sort of your transition mentally from player to coach and what that was like for you?
Yeah, I think it's something I've known about for a few years. I probably didn't expect it to come so quickly because I was fit and playing well at Swindon. And even when I first came here was feeling good. Obviously was a bit of a different situation in terms of it being a relegation battle. But it's something I've known for a while. It's something I've learnt a lot from the manager. Spent a lot of time having conversations about football and getting a lot of clarity around how I would do things. And then the opportunity came in the summer. Probably sort of knew around December, January time that I was going to have to stop playing because my knee wasn't feeling great and I sort of couldn't do what I wanted to do anymore. Probably could have carried on, but not to the level that I wanted to. So the opportunity came to join the staff and I jumped at it.
So you were a full-time professional first-team coach. How does that sound? How does that feel?
Yeah, probably not taking it in loads. I really do feel so grateful that the transition's been so smooth, honestly, because having been on my coaching badges and having met a lot of other guys that are probably a bit older than me, definitely have had fantastic careers, better than my career. They found it tough to get opportunities, but at the same time, I will say that I've prepared a lot for this. I've known for a long time what I've wanted to do and what is required to get to that place. So a bit of both. Really grateful and maybe a little bit of luck and timing, but also I've worked hard.
So can you talk about how you were as a player growing up and through your years? Were you always sort of a player coach on the pitch, a leader, a captain?
No, not at all. Do you know what? Funnily enough, I think probably a lot of the guys that I played with within my early 20s would be like, he's doing what now? But lots of different experiences along the way. I think I've probably experienced just about everything you can in football in terms of I've been the guy that everybody's loved. I've been the guy that everybody's hated. I've been the guy that's been injured. I've been the guy that's played every game, that's played no minutes because the manager doesn't want them. I've been the young, quiet, shy guy. I've been the older, more confident player. So I feel I've probably got quite a lot of experiences now to call upon doing what I'm doing now. And I'm obviously at the start of a new journey and really learning my trade again, but I feel comfortable. I'm enjoying it every day, and is a start of a new process, I guess.
Interesting. So I would have thought your answer was going to be that you were always the leader, you were always the captain, you were always the manager, sort of player on the pitch. When did you think that maybe you'd want to step into that role and become a manager?
I think probably was about 27, 28 MK Dons. I was with Luke Williams, who's now a Swansea manager. I've known for a long time, was the coach, and then Russell Martin was the manager. And they just asked me if I was doing my coaching badges, and I'd said no. And I coached at a younger age, at 18, 19, when I was playing non-league football. then just completely stopped. You get caught up in the whirlwind of professional football. So about 27, I think I started to consider. I said I wasn't doing my coaching badges, and they told me to start, so I did. The process of probably the last four years, really, I've started to gradually take it more and more serious.
What's that process like? Is it weekly courses? Is it sort of attending sessions? I
honestly think it can be as easy or as hard, as intense or as laid back as you want to make it. So I've sort of put my foot down to the floor and gone full throttle with it. But you do your B license, which is your level 3 coaching badge, which is not too hard, not too intense, and then you get onto your A license, which is a little more intense. I've done that with the English FA. So there's a few trips to St George's Park, and you're on Zoom at least twice a month in the evenings, and then you go and do a visit once a month, usually to a training ground, and you coach some guys there, the academies. So that's a bit more intense. But listen, I learned a lot on that, but I think most of the learning is done away on the grass. Just even last season, still as a player, but I was fortunate enough that the manager would let me do so much on the grass with him, and learn so much. I learned so much last season, and that continues now. I'm still learning every day.
So are you still working towards a new level of badges?
No, so at the minute I've finished my A license. I have to have at least a year before I can apply for my pro license, which is what you need to manage at the top level in any country. So to work in the Premier League here and the top league in any country abroad. So I'll see how I feel next summer. That the aim will be to get my pro license eventually, definitely. But it also costs a few quid, so we'll see next summer.
Awesome. Now, talking about some of the managers you played for, you already mentioned some who were influences. Who really stands out as someone you say, I want to be like that when I shape my career?
Well, I think the gaffer here, I see him every day. I see his game model, obviously, the way he sets the team up. I've learned a lot from him, both on and off the pitch. So he's definitely a big inspiration, and I'm fortunate enough to get a lot of inside looks at it all. But Luke Williams was probably the first guy that influenced me a lot. He was the first team coach at Swindon at the time when I came out of non-league football, and I'd just never seen anything like it. Football looked completely different under him compared to anyone else. And again, a similar game model, all about possession of the football and trying to control the game as much as possible. So I had him, and I was fortunate enough to have Russell Martin as well, who's obviously doing fantastic at Southampton now. Again, another similar game model. So I've been probably conditioned over the years to see football a certain way and falling in love with it and doing things that way. So, and then you have your own ideas as well that you take, bits that you do like, bits you don't like. So definitely those three guys have been the biggest influences.
What about big name managers, that you'd want to play for either in video games or when you were a child? Or have you taken lessons from any big names like that?
Yeah, I think the boring one that everyone would say would be Pep Guardiola, because he's obviously, for me, just the best ever. I grew up falling in love really with his Barcelona team, 2008, 9, 10. And I've always said that they're the best team I've ever seen. But I have to be honest, I'm looking at this Man City team now and what they're capable of doing against any opposition. I just don't see them really coming unstuck too often. So that's probably the one that everyone would say. And I'm really interested in what Alonso's doing now at Leverkusen, and I love the fact that he's decided to stay as well, because it would have been easy for him to jump ship and move to a big club, but I think he's probably so intelligent that he understands he's got some learning to do, and maybe the timing wasn't right, etc. So I try to watch a lot of his stuff and try to get as many little snippets as I can from online, little behind the scenes bits and bobs. But I think guys that look after the football, try to dominate the ball, try to create an environment where everyone can learn and grow every day, I'm interested in anyone that's doing that.
So I think you just listed there the type of manager that you want to be, what you want to be known for.
I'd love to be that good. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully one day I can get near the level, but definitely that's the type of guy that I would like to be known as. Looks after his players, cares about the human being first and foremost, and then can create an incredible game model as well one day. So doing a lot of learning, a lot of listening, a lot of taking on of information, and then getting to practice on the grass every day, which is fantastic.
So one thing that's interesting is that I think in a lot of ways, football overall is in a transition period. Whether we at WAGME and here at Crawley are one end of that spectrum of being very analytically focused to advanced tactics that we're seeing all over Europe, etc. What do you think is going to help make managers successful in the future? What are the new generation of aspiring head coaches thinking about, and what type of skills are you trying to get to prepare yourself?
I think there's a lot. I think there is a lot. There's a lot of different aspects to consider. I always try to go with the human being first, which maybe is some people don't love to hear because it should all be about the football, but having been someone that has never been able to perform unless I'm feeling in a good place as a human being, I have a lot of empathy for that. I try to understand that the human being needs to be in a good place first and foremost for them to be able to take on any sort of tactical information. So I care about the person. I try to find different ways to tap into that first. And then tactically, the game's just gone bonkers. Sometimes I wind the analysts up here because I'm like, I don't know what language they're speaking because they talk about numbers and shapes and bits and bobs. And I think ultimately football is still football. It hasn't. What happens on the grass has always happened to an extent. It just looks a little bit different and is spoken about a little bit different. So I sit somewhere in the middle of not making it too confusing because we can overload the players definitely. So trying to. And the manager's brilliant at it here. Simplify the message, give a lot of clarity to the guys, and allow them to go on the pitch in a good space. Really.
In terms of things that you want to learn, are you trying to build a skill set that includes video analysis, data analytics, messaging, communication? Like, how do you think about beyond just the whiteboard in some ways?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And I think all of that you mentioned is so important. I'm a big fan of video. I think it's so important. My learning style is always visual. I've needed to see something to understand it. So we definitely look to do, obviously the manager does a big team meeting, and then we do a lot of unit meetings and individual stuff, because some guys may not want to speak in a big meeting, may not even want to speak in a unit meeting, but once you get them by themselves, they can open up more and you get to understand why they've done a certain action. The data stuff is not something I completely understand yet, but I've just enrolled in a course to try to get to understand a lot more about it, because it's definitely the way that the game's going. And I think if you don't understand it, you get left behind, and you need to try to stay ahead or at least keep up. And then also the messaging part in terms of how you deliver your message to the group. You need to know which chord to strike in which moment, because it's such an emotional sport, and we're dealing with human beings constantly. So I think, like I say, there's so much for a manager or a coach to try to understand. Probably finding a balance between not spreading yourself too thin where you don't get good at any of it, but you have a good understanding of all of it. I'm trying to find that.
Well, it was exciting last year when you were the man on the sideline when Scott was serving a suspension. So that was your first taste of your first team manager experience. When do you think you'll be a first team head coach?
I honestly don't know. I'm in no rush at all. Like I say, I love working for the manager. I love learning constantly. I just think when the time is right, I'll probably know. I'll feel that it's the right opportunity, because it's a really ruthless business, and often when you get the chance, sometimes the ego revs up and you think, I can do this, and you get it wrong and you never get another opportunity again. So always very conscious of that, and I wouldn't have an answer for you in all honesty. But when the time is right, I think I'll feel it, and I'll know when it is, and I look forward to that day, but until then is constant learning.
So you're the gaffer at home. You've got a son who...
I'm not sure I am.
Well, on the football side, maybe.
Yeah.
You've got a son who, by all accounts, is a promising footballer in his own right. Could you talk a little bit about his journey and how your career and now your view as a manager is shaping how you're working with him along the process?
Yeah, I think it's funny because like he's probably the only person that doesn't ever listen to me. So if I was as bad a coach at home as I am at my job, I wouldn't last very long. Hopefully the guys listen to me a little more than Logan. But no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. There's loads of learnings for me at home as well, actually, because I think there's so much more emotion attached to if I ever do anything in the garden with him. Is like because I love him so much and I'm his daddy and stuff. He doesn't necessarily listen to me a great deal, and I feel like he should. So I maybe get a bit frustrated. So there becomes a little bit of tension. Then I go inside for a couple of minutes and then come back out and like, right, let's just have fun. So look, I think every dad would love their little boy to play football, but at the same time, I've been in the industry for a really long time, and I understand there's a lot of suffering and pain involved in it as well. So if he ever arrives at a point where he could possibly do it, it would be amazing. But I want him to be prepared and understanding it is not easy. But first and foremost, honestly, is because the type of person I am, I just want him to have fun with it. As long as he enjoys it and has fun, I'm happy.
Now, I was hoping it was going to be a LeBron James and Bronny James situation. Maybe we're going to hang on long enough to play with him, but maybe we'll be able to manage him one day.
I think he would have loved that. He actually constantly mentioned that, and I was like, mate, have you seen the state of my knee? You come to watch me on a Saturday afternoon. So no, that would have been lovely, but yeah, we'll see. I think if he continues not listening to me, he can never be in my team when he's a bit older. But I'm sure he's a good kid. He's a great kid, and he listens to everybody else except me, so he'll do all right.
Good. Ben, thanks for joining. First guest. Really appreciate your time. And for those of you watching, comment below on someone you'd like to see on the show in one of the future episodes. And thanks for tuning in.